Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of U of T Live. Today, we will be talking about everything Faculty of Arts and Science, which is near and dear to my heart. Longer ago than I'd care to admit, I graduated from the Faculty of Arts and Science here at U of T, and I'm joined by two current U of T students with the Faculty of Arts and Science. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
All right, hi there, I'm Quinn. I'm studying nutritional sciences and human geography as a double major, and I'm a fourth-year student.
Hi, my name is Moriam. I'm a second-year student, and I'm studying physiology and neuroscience.
Both very different things than what I studied. And that's maybe one of the neatest things about the Faculty of Arts and Science is that there are so many programs of study that fall underneath them. Before we get going, a few housekeeping notes. We're speaking today primarily to 101 accepted students. Of course, if you're joining us and you have not already been admitted or you're a 105, we're delighted to speak with you. Keeping in mind, we have a U of T live session scheduled for later this month, which will cover all things 105. But just to do a quick update as to where we are in the admissions process right now. The next round of admissions, so if you're a Faculty of Arts and Science student or you've applied to the Faculty of Arts and Science and you have not yet received an admissions decision, the next round of admissions decisions will be issued in May. If you have received an offer of admission, it's important that you keep a few things in mind. The most important being that you'll have to log on and make your residence rankings within a 2-week time period from when you receive that offer of admission. And that is all explained in your offer. And the last and perhaps most pressing issues are all around course selection. You've been admitted to the university. Now you're anxious about your next steps. In the month of June, maybe late May, many of the colleges here at U of T will be having information and advising sessions to give you a little bit more information about how course selection works. And July 21st is going to be when you can see when your start time to actually go online and pick those courses is, and July 28th is the date that course enrollment begins. I know that's a lot of information to throw at you. We'll update it again as we go, but let's get rolling with some questions. The first question we have here is a good one. Unfortunately, everyone's going to have to hear me talk a little bit longer because it's a question for a recruiter. The question is about the difference between a full-time student and a full course load. Great question. In a nutshell, the difference is that a full course load is a student who is taking 5 courses throughout the period of the year, whereas a full-time student is someone who's taking 3 or more courses in that same time period. So someone with a full course load is a full-time student, but someone with 3 courses or more, maybe 4, is also considered a full-time student, but they're not taking a full course load. Now, on to the questions. Ladies, are you ready? This is such an important question, and I think not enough students ask about it. Keeping in mind everyone's answer is going to be a little different, but can you tell us a little bit about what it's like making the transition from high school into university, and any advice you might have for a first-year student?
Great question. I can take a stab at it first. Yeah, I think one of the greatest differences between high school and university for me was that university requires a lot of independence. So there's a lot going on at high school, a lot going on in your classes, but usually your teachers will remind you when deadlines are coming up. They'll remind you when things are due. And in university, there's a lot more going on. There's a lot of opportunities. Things are really exciting. But there is you are required to be a lot more independent and take initiative. And that's why, most of you guys are accepted or on the way to U of T, which is exciting, which means I'm sure you guys have great track records. But I think just keeping in mind that initiative is important and you're moving into this space where you're going to be independent, which is very, very exciting, is one of the greatest differences in that transition.
That's a really good point. Moriam?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Quinn. And for me personally, I actually came from a really, really small high school. I graduated from a graduating class of 100 students.
Wow.
Or less than that. And so coming to U of T was a really, really big change for me because it is a much larger place. And actually that was really exciting because for the first time I had so many choices in terms of the courses that I could take, the kinds of people that I could meet. And yeah, it was a really exciting time transitioning from that small high school to, this bigger environment. But I think what was really great in first year for me was taking a seminar class, which was, you kind of get that a happy medium where you're taking some of your larger university classes for your major, but you also take a seminar class. And a seminar class is one where there's about 25 students and you have a professor and there's a dedicated topic, but it's very general because you're in first year, so you kind of get that interdisciplinary approach. And it was really great because You get to get really friendly with all of your classmates, and you kind of just build that strong foundation. And so you kind of have your own little like environment on campus. In terms of what really helped me in first year, other than the seminar class, was just developing like organizational skills. I think definitely in the first week of your classes, what I would recommend is kind of get out like an agenda or like Google Calendar or whatever it is, and just like write down all your deadlines, write down your goals of what you want to accomplish in first year, and think about how you could approach those. And you can keep updating that as the year goes on.
For sure. And like maybe one more thing to add as well, like yes, there's a need for you to be independent. Yes, you have to take initiative. But one of the great things about U of T is there's an incredible amount of kind of transition support when you're coming into the university. Yeah. So Miriam mentioned seminar classes. I took something called the First Year Learning Community, which is an opportunity available to first year students where you can get together with a small group of your peers from your particular area of study. For me, that was life sciences, and meet every 2 weeks with a few kind of mentors in fourth year and a professor to go over organizational tips, to meet with different speakers. To study. It's a really, really great experience. So definitely lots of transition support available.
Oh, great. Speaking of support, speaking of seminar style classes and navigating sort of the pitfalls of making a transition into a university level classroom, it begs sort of the next question. What is this concept of majors, minors, and specialties? Keeping in mind students really don't need to make decisions on that until coming to the end of their first year, but having navigated that situation, do you have any input on sort of how students should be looking at specialties, majors, and minors, and what makes them different?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess the first thing would be to address like what are specialist majors and minors. So they really just refer to these sets of courses that you would take towards a particular program. So I guess the way that you should think about it is that a specialist is that it's very like in-depth. So at U of T, you can either take one specialist or 2 majors, or a major and 2 minors. Those are like the minimum requirements, and of course you can like mix and match as needed. And it really just kind of determines like how in depth you go into a particular field. Yeah. So for example, I'm a neuroscience specialist, and so that means that I will take a lot of courses in my degree that are related to neuroscience, but that's because I'm really, really interested in just neuroscience, and like I like to focus in and get really like nitty gritty into that kind of thing. But on the other hand, what I could also have done is taken a double major in say neuroscience, and maybe I was interested in like physiology, for example, so I could take a major in that as well. And so that would allow me to have a little bit more flexibility and kind of take other courses and other like fields of interest that I might be interested in. And that's something that I really like about U of T, is that you can totally like combine different things and just study whatever it is that you want to study and learn what it is that you want to learn. And then finally, the minors would be just a couple of courses within that particular field. And so they just refer to like the number of courses. So like specialists would be like, I don't know, 14 to 16, depending on what it is, and also depending on the field. Majors are about 8, minors are about 4. In terms of choosing, I think I was really lost when I was choosing my programs, and what I would recommend is in first year, just take a whole bunch of different classes, and anything that you think might be interesting. So, I took like the standard biology classes because I was in life science as well, but I also took this really cool class, history and philosophy of science, because I was kind of interested in like humanities and things, and that was a really, really enjoyable class for me, and it really got me thinking about my interest in bioethics, and that might be something I pursue in the future.
Very good answer. You leave very little wanting there. The one thing I often add to that when students speak to me about it is really that it doesn't matter whether you're specializing, majoring, or minoring. You're essentially taking the same number of courses, but exactly as you pointed out, it's how many of those courses you're choosing to allot to a specific area. You took the words out of my mouth when you said, I love neuroscience, it's sort of my bread and butter. I always say to a student, if you wake up in the morning and biology is all you care about, specialize in biology. Yeah. But if you wake up in the morning and you love biology and something like history, maybe you want to consider a double major. Yourself, are you specializing, majoring, minoring?
So I'm actually a double major.
Awesome.
And one point I wanted to add as well, like I know, like Miriam said, it can be like a lot of different choices. A nice thing about U of T, and one thing that was particularly important to me, was that you have 1 year before you have to decide what your specialists are going to be. So in your first year, rather than being a double major in this and a specialist in this, you're just a life science student or a social science student. You fall under one of kind of the categories that are underneath the big arts and sciences umbrella. So for me in my first year, I was also really excited about life sciences, was planning on maybe doing a specialist in nutrition. But I decided, people had advised me to kind of explore different classes. I took a class in a subject called human geography and just absolutely fell in love with that major and decided that kind of social science side of things was something I wanted to pursue as well. So I'm doing a double major, both in this kind of nutritional science space as well as human geography. And that's worked out really, really well for me. I'm really, really grateful for that year I had to better understand, I know I like science in high school, but what does science look like in university, and what are all the nuances of that? It was really important for me to have that year to explore.
That's a really good point. We've kind of got the full range here. We have someone who specialized, a double major, and I did a major and 2 minors because I was greedy and wanted to study as many things as I possibly could. In discussing classes and making choices like this and understanding what's right for you versus what's right for someone else, we should really maybe go back to some of the support networks and talk about how they can help you not only make those choices but cope with the stresses of class. I think there's a lot of students out there that are really worried, to put a fine point on it, on the difficulty of university level courses and the challenge that they will face academically. What kind of experience do you ladies have with that, and any support networks that you've tapped into at the university that made a difference in your time at school so far?
It's a big question.
I know. It's
take a second to digest. Yeah. In terms of first year, and again, kind of back to that first year transition question, wow, there is a bit of a jump in terms of the independence that you have to have. And no doubt, university classes are challenging. Yeah. But I hope the reason you guys are here is because you love that. You like what you're studying, you like That's school. Right. For me, I loved my first year classes in science more than I loved my high school classes times 1,000. We finally got to dive deeper on a lot of things that I was excited about. I just absolutely loved it. And it was definitely challenging. And even when I was staying up late and studying, I was thinking, wow, this is really hard, but man, this is really exciting. And I'm so happy that I get to learn this. Yeah. So yes, it will be challenging because that's the nature of university. And anywhere you go, it's going to be difficult. But hopefully you're here because you know that and you're excited to learn, is kind of the cheery answer that I can give you. And that kind of passion and excitement for the subject that you're pursuing will get you through that kind of difficulty and that initial jump into this new space.
Absolutely agree, and that kind of highlights the importance of really following your interests and kind of exploring those things, because that is what will fuel you through the exam season, for example. Just to add on to what Quinn was saying, I think that especially when you're transitioning in first year, you also start developing certain skills that have kind of started germinating in high school with time management and organizational skills, and really just kind of having a basic plan, blueprint set out for yourself can help you kind of get a little structure to make things seem a little less stressful. So for example, let's say you have, I had to write a 4,000 word essay for this random thing. And it sounds horrible, I was so scared when I read it on the syllabus. It was we have to do this. I have never done that. But what really helped me through that was just trying to break it down into different sections, into more manageable chunks. And I think that those kinds of skills of how to approach a problem is something you can really pick up in first year, and that definitely helps you throughout the next couple of years of your undergraduate degree.
Really good point. I think, students will all navigate this differently because every student is different. And so some students manage to navigate some challenges independently with their own study habits. We've got writing clinics at the university. If you don't know what to do when it comes to writing an essay, professors all have office hours, opportunities for you to go and speak to them and ask real questions, tutorial sections, extra help. Your college community as a whole can be a great network of not only social but academic support. So really what I often tell students, it's about taking ownership. It's about saying, this is what I'm good at and this is where I'm struggling. And when you identify where you're struggling, all of a sudden, all of the types of things we've just discussed, like writing clinics, like extra help, like office hours, suddenly open up as real world tangible support systems that you can take advantage of. And you see it on the faces of our students all the time that embrace it. It's a great learning environment, and it's the university's obligation to provide you with these kinds of supports. But it's your job to help us help you when you need it, and let us know how we can help you. We've got a great question here that I think is going to really touch on the dynamic that we've got between the two of you. The question is, what are the pros and cons between living in residence and commuting?
All right, well, I actually am a commuter. I commute from another part of Toronto. And I think what's really great about commuting is that there's kind of this first of all, I actually really like just like my morning commute is just a really nice kind of time for me to just sit down and plan and think about my day. And I think like as a commuter, there's a really great support network for commuter students on each of the colleges. I'm a member of Victoria College, and we have our own commuter don, just like how there are residence dons who are kind of one of your main support contacts at your college. And there are dedicated commuter events, and I guess like as a commuter, I've felt even more pushed to become involved with the different communities on campus, to get involved in extracurriculars, and to just really go out and meet people. And so I enjoy commuting. It's yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, for sure. And like building up that, so I stayed in residence and I had a really fantastic time in residence. And it's funny, I would say my friend group was a real mix of people who were on residence and people who were off residence. Like one of the great things about University of Toronto, and one of the great things about going to a big school, is the ways in which you get to choose your community. I think some people are often intimidated by the size of U of T because they think, oh my gosh, it's so big, I'm going to get lost. But in reality, like, because there's so many people doing so many interesting things, it's a really awesome opportunity to connect with people who share the same passion and same interests as you. So I had a lot of friends who really built their community on residence, and that was an important thing for them. And that's both people who lived in residence and commuters. And for me, as much as I loved my residence, I really found my community in some of the different clubs and opportunities off of residence. And that was where I built a lot of my friendships, and that was a real mix of commuters and people who were staying on residence alike. So yeah, residence is a great opportunity, commuting is a great opportunity, and neither of them are going to necessarily impact the community you choose.
It's definitely what you get out of it.
For sure. What you put in is what you get out in both cases.
I know that I always appreciated, I was a commuter, and I always appreciated my commute, mostly because I got to do all my reading on the TTC, and by the time I came home, I said, great, well, that's that done. And I was always on top of my readings as a commuter, that's for sure. One of the other questions I often like to ask students about their student experience is exactly what you mentioned, sort of the clubs and the social opportunities. I think all too often students forget how important developing socially can impact and have a big influence on your academics. Guys like me talk all the time about the fact that we have 1,000+ student clubs, but it's important to really speak to the current students. How have you found those social opportunities at the university? And maybe tell us a little bit about some of the ones you've enjoyed and how they've enhanced your experience here at the university.
Yeah. So clubs have been really, really important to me in university. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I'd ever give any student who's coming to U of T. I know there's a temptation to say like, I'm going to focus on my grades in first year, I'm just going to do that, and then maybe in third or fourth year I'll get involved in clubs. But I think the skills that you build out of the classroom are so critical, not only to improving the way you perform in the classroom, but also when you graduate, right? Like knowing how to run a meeting effectively and run a team effectively and launch an event and run a project, like those are really, really important skills. And again, so I think I've built a lot of work experience at the clubs I've been a part of, as well as like, again, my community is often in these clubs because they share the same passion and same interests as me. So I'm very involved in the club called Engineers Without Borders, a bit of a misnomer, not just for engineers. They're a really fantastic international development group. They share a lot of the same passion as me about bringing a critical perspective to development, and that has just been such an important opportunity for me to grow. I've got a summer job out of that opportunity. I've got multiple different kind of paths and opportunities through the work that I've done with them. So highly, highly recommend getting involved in clubs.
Great.
Lots of opportunities come out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to touch on something that Josh mentioned about how you find those opportunities, I think one of the very first things that you start off doing in first year is in the very first week there will be a clubs fair where like a lot of the clubs at U of T will kind of set up a booth in Hart House Circle, and you can kind of go around and kind of talk to people and see what they're up to. And that's actually how I got involved with one of my first clubs, which was the Neuroscience Association of Undergraduate Students. We're an academic union that represent neuroscience students. This year I was a second year representative, and it was such an amazing time because it really helped me meet people that I wouldn't have normally met in my classes. If classes are a little large, these were, a little ways in which you can kind of connect with people in your academic communities in that sense. And we did a lot of like social programming, so again, like event planning, how to run meetings, those kinds of skills. This is where I first started to develop it, and I'll be continuing to do that next year. I'll be in charge of social programming for the association now. In terms of other opportunities, I'm also involved with science outreach, which is something that's really near and dear to my heart because I'm really interested in like science education. And so I work with a group on campus called Seeds U of T. And so we run workshops throughout the city on different, like, I guess, basic science and health topics for students in elementary schools, and it's so much fun. I've met so many really, really great people, and I love working with children. And I guess like my biggest advice for if you're interested in getting involved, which I highly, highly recommend, is isolate maybe one or two main interests that you have. So for me, it was science outreach and neuroscience, and then see what kind of opportunities U of T has to offer. Because we're such a large school, it's amazing because there are so many people that have the same interests as you, and there's bound to be a club that kind of tailors to your interests. And if there isn't, you can totally just make one. It's so easy. So yeah, definitely recommend getting involved on campus.
Really, really good points. We've got a question here that actually touches somewhat on something Quinn already brought up, which is sort of work opportunities, whether it's while you're a student here or maybe ongoing. You mentioned through your involvement in the club, you had a summer job. How do you see your experience as a student here lending itself to not only part-time job opportunities, but maybe future career options as well?
Absolutely. So for me, last summer, I actually worked in a research lab at the Hospital for Sick Children. Again, I'm in neuroscience, if you haven't gotten that already. I'm really into it. And so I was a research student at a lab. And what we do is we study the biological mechanisms of learning and memory. And, coming in as a first-year student, as someone who had just finished first year, I didn't really know what research really was going into it. And I kind of connected with this professor who runs the lab through my seminar class in first year, and that started this really great working relationship, and now I'm continuing to work in his lab. And now I find that this is something that I really would be interested in getting into, research as a career, or like science communication or something along those lines. And I think that if I hadn't joined that seminar class, if I hadn't reached out to this professor, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And it's just been so great. It's really been kind of directing my future interests a lot.
Very cool.
Amazing. Yeah. So, when I think about work opportunities in university, one of the things that I often talk to first-year students about, or people coming into university, or people who are thinking about different universities, is the city that they're in. So for me, a lot of the work positions I got, one, like I said, was through Engineers Without Borders, and that was an on-campus opportunity that enabled me to travel. But I find just by virtue of being in Toronto, there's a lot of really incredible opportunities available. There's like a lot of hubs happening, particularly if you're interested in science. I mean, you have some of the biggest hospitals in Canada here. I was interested in international development, and a lot of the heads of NGOs were all in Toronto. So it was very easy for me to grab coffee as long as I was being proactive and taking initiative. There was a lot of really interesting people I could meet and a lot of kind of connections and networks that I could build by virtue of that. And there's also a bunch of really fantastic on-campus opportunities to get work.
Absolutely. PEY years, internships, co-op placements at the Scarborough campus. But I think it's a great point that you bring about the city. We spend so much time talking about the resources of the school. I think one of the most important resources of the school is the city within which it exists. The city of Toronto provides so much opportunity for academic, career, and social development. It's just a really exciting place to be a young person and to study. A question here that is really important. We had sort of touched earlier on the idea between a major, a minor, and a specialty. Students asking about picking courses in first year. Just to jump in, and they may have missed this at the start, your college is going to be holding a number of information sessions in the month of June to help explain the course selection process. So we'll let the colleges handle the specifics of that, but the real question is, let's say you make your course selections, you get through first year, you start to select your specialties, majors, and minors. What if you have a change of heart in second or third year? Can you change your specialties and your majors and your minors? The answer is yes.
Absolutely.
It is, and it's one of the great resources at the school is not only are we flexible, but your academic advisors can really help you navigate that. It's something I had personal experience with when I was in grade 13, because Ontario still had OAC when I was a student in high school. I said I was going to specialize in archaeology. I knew it. It was absolutely true. Indiana Jones was the best movie in the world, and in first year I learned very quickly what archaeology was, and it was not accurately represented in the movie Indiana Jones. But I stuck with it, and I stuck to my guns, and I declared a specialty in archaeology, and it wasn't until third year that I realized it wasn't right for me. And I made appointments with my academic advisors, and they gave me a great bit of feedback to help direct me to a major that worked well for me and that I really enjoyed, and exploited my love of the things that I thought I would find in archaeology. And it added no time to my degree because it was a similar field. So the answer in short is yes, you can make these changes. It sometimes comes with, if you spend 3 years as a philosophy student and then wake up one day and want to be a theoretical physicist, you may have to do some catching up. It may add some semesters of study, but the answer is yes, you can make those changes. Absolutely. Maybe as we're waiting for some other questions to come in here, I love asking students this. If you had to pick one thing that you've done as a student here, whether it's an academic experience or enrollment in a club or something that happens during orientation week or Frosh week, what would be your favorite moment as a student here?
I think my favorite moment in first year during Frosh was the Tri-Campus Parade. That was the first moment where I thought, wow, I'm in university. There are all of these amazing people here.
Tell us a bit about the parade. What's the parade exactly?
Oh, yeah. So the Tri-Campus Parade is when students, so all of Frosh and all the colleges come together and kind of parade down like St. George Street and around like the different streets in Toronto, kind of just going woo like our colleges and just like really getting excited, and there's just so much energy. And it was the first time that I really felt like, wow, I'm in university, and here's my community, and here are all the other really cool people out there. And I was just really excited about the opportunities that I have in the next couple of years and the people that I would get to meet. I think it was just like that first sense of, wow, like this is a new step in my life. That was really enjoyable.
It's a great moment.
Yeah, a bunch of moments, but for me, like one moment of like, wow, like this is gonna be exciting. Was probably my first class in Convocation Hall. I'm not sure if some of you have heard about Convocation Hall. It's probably it's I think the biggest lecture hall in Toronto. It can house 2,000 students, I believe.
It's certainly a lot.
It's very large. And I also came from a very small high school. I'm from Windsor, Ontario originally, and I was really nervous about coming to University of Toronto. Really nervous about the big class sizes. And I was kind of in this big amphitheater and realized like everybody who was with me in this room cared about the same thing that I cared about. And the prof who went up was a fantastic speaker. He was really engaged. And the subject matter was fascinating, and I was like, wow, this is going to be fantastic. I'm so excited to embark on this experience. So don't be intimidated by the large classes. It's not for everyone. There's also smaller class experiences if that's your cup of tea. But definitely give it a chance. I was really nervous, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed being in that setting.
Absolutely. I think the advice I give to students as often as I can is remember that everybody is an individual with their own individual needs, their own path that brought them to the point of university. And the greatest thing about a school like the University of Toronto is that while we've got all of these wonderful academic resources that we can bring to the table, I think students often forget that those also come with a huge array of social and support services and networks and resources that we can bring into play to make sure that your student experience is everything you hoped it to be, and your academic experience benefits from that as well. I think my moment in university was very similar to the one you mentioned. I remember the parade. We were both Vic students. You're a current Vic student. I'm a former Vic student. And it was that moment in orientation week and Frosh week, parading down the street, that again I sort of thought, hey, I found a community. And it wasn't the only community that I ended up belonging to. It was one of many. But when you invest some of your time in the communities that are available here, the payoff is tenfold. I joke with students all the time that I met my wife at Victoria College, and it was so important to us that we named my daughter, her middle name is Victoria, because of that. And so it's a real testament to the fact that student experience can be so incredibly enhanced by taking advantage of the communities that you see. It looks like you ladies have done an amazing job of answering questions. We're wrapped up. We have no questions left. I'd just like to remind everybody to keep monitoring their email if you've been an admitted student. Information will be coming your way as the weeks and months go on, as we lead into course selection time and things like that. And certainly if you're a 105 applicant, please tune in the coming weeks. We'll have another U of T live session to address your specific questions. Thanks for joining us today, Quinn and Moriam, and thank you very much for joining me. The next one, producer Ashifa is saying the next one is April 21st? 11th. April 11th. I don't know where I got the two from. April 11th at 4 p.m. You can join us back here for answers to more of your burning U of T questions. Thanks for everybody.
Okay, thanks guys.
Good luck.